Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. In today's tutorial we'll be learning how to make this beginner friendly cardigan. It is worked all up in one stitch except where we have to use a slip stitch and single crochets, but otherwise it's absolute for beginners. All you have to learn is how to make the half double slip stitch. Once you master that, you're absolutely good to go. I did make this in a size small, which is my size. So if you're a larger size or a smaller size, you want to refer to the free written pattern, which you can find the link in the description box below. The materials you need to achieve this pattern are your 6mm hook and your 4mm hook, stitch marker, and your measuring tape, and that's about it. We're using worsted weight yarn. As long as it fits well for your 6mm hook, then go ahead and use that. I, for one, don't have access to a lot of yarn, so what I do is use 2 strands of yarn held together, but I make sure the thickness is compatible for my 6mm hook. So enough chattering, let's get right into the tutorial. So for this sample version, I will be using a 5mm hook and a 4mm hook. You want to refer to the written pattern to know which size hook you have to use. So to begin, I will begin by making a slip knot, just like this, and you're gonna refer to the written pattern to know how many chains you need to make for your size. As for this, I'm just gonna do a chain up of 20. And just like that. And then I will grab my 4mm hook and into the first 5 stitches. So I'm just going to make sure I have a stitch marker close by. Into the first 5 stitches, I'm going to be going in with half double slip stitches. To do a half double slip stitch, you're just going to yarn over into the second stitch from the hook. You insert your hook, pull through. I like to turn my hook around like this, and then I'll slip stitch through the other 2. Yarn over into that loop hook, pull it through, turn my hook upside down and pull through those. If that's a bit too hard for you, you can just yarn over, pull through, hold this down, the middle stitch, and just pull through like that. I have done 3, 4, and finally 5. Then I'll grab my stitch marker and place it into there. We're placing the stitch marker into here so that we don't forget where we switch out our crochet hooks. Now you're gonna grab your bigger hook and continue up. So this entire cardigan is literally made out of this stitch, half double slip stitch, my one and only favorite stitch. I love it so much because of the knit look that it gives. The finished look, it looks all knit, and I've always wanted to learn how to knit. I guess I will learn. I think it's gonna be my 2022 New Year resolution. I'm sure somewhere in the year 2022 we're gonna start seeing knitting tutorials on this channel. So all you're gonna do is go all the way up with your half double slip stitch. We're almost at the top of our work. And this is the last one. And this is what your work should be looking like at the very end of your row. So now that we've reached the top of our work, all we're gonna do is do a chain of 1 and turn our work. So to get the knit-like look, the ribbing, we have to work into the back loop only. So that's what we're going to do for the entire cardigan. So this is our first stitch right here, and we're going to be working into the back loop of that with a half double slip stitch. just like that. So it's the loop that's the furthest away from you. And honestly, this is so addictive, this stitch. I'm sure it's going to be your favorite one as well. I love working sweaters, cardigans, beanies using this stitch. So we've got a few more left. One more before we switch to the 4mm hook. So I'm going to switch to that, remove my stitch marker, and then I will finish off the row with the 4mm hook. This is why I say that this cardigan is for absolute beginners. All you have to know to do is to do the half double slip stitch. So now that you've reached the end, you're gonna do a chain up of 1 and turn. Now remember to count your stitches. So into the first 5 with this 4mm hook. That was 1, 2, 3, 4, and finally, 5. Replace that stitch marker right in there and switch to your bigger hook. I believe it's a 6mm hook, if I'm not wrong. Yes, it should be a 6. The pattern should call for a 6mm hook with your worsted weight yarn. So pretty much this is what we're going to be doing. Just switching between the hooks, the bigger hooks and the smaller hooks. And the portion that we're making is one of the front portions before we go into the back portion. So I'm just going to lay the work down like this and explain it to you, because from here on you can continue the rest by yourselves. The beginning here, to get the little ribbon at the bottom, we're going to be using the 4mm hook. And then after the stitch marker, going our way up, we'll be using the 6mm hook. I'm using the 5 because of my yarn, but otherwise you will be using your 6mm hook. And what we're doing is the front portion. So the written pattern is going to tell you how many rows you need to do to work for your side. I'm probably going to do about 10 for the miniature version. It's so tiny, look at it. For this little miniature version that I'm making. And after you've done your number of rows, you're going to come back so we can talk about the next step. So after doing your number of rows, you want to make sure you end at the bottom of your work. You're going to work up the required number of rows for your size. I've worked at about 10 and I left 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I left 8 stitches at the top. So what I'm going to do, we're now creating that armhole so that we can start working on the back portion. So I'm going to do a chain up of 8. I'll block that and chain 1 more and turn my work. So this is what your work should be looking like right about now. So blocking off that last chain, you're gonna go into the second hook from the stitch, second stitch from the hook with a half double slip stitch. Just like that, and this will be the first row of the back portion. So we're going to keep doing this all the way down. There's no decreases, no increases. And once you reach the stitch marker, you want to make sure you switch your, the size of your hook to your 4mm so that the ribbing can form. So all you're going to do is repeat this, and you're going to repeat this for the number of rows that is required for your size. For my back, I might do about 26 or 24, 26, somewhere thereabout. So you do the required number of rows that you need for your size, and then I'll meet you so that we can do the other front portion together. So I have just finished working my rows for the back portion, and this is what it should look like. This is where our armhole is going to be, and I've just worked the whole back portion. When we close it, this is how it's going to be. And now we're about to make another armhole. So since I chained 8 on this side, I don't know how many chains your size requires. I'm going to do the very same thing to this other side. And 8. So this is what it should look like right after. And blocking off that last chain, I'm gonna do an extra 1 chain just like that, and then we'll get started on the row. So into the second stitch from the hook, you're gonna go in with your half double slip stitch. Honestly, this cardigan is so simple, very simple, because all we're doing is repeating the same thing over and over and over again. All that's changing is where you want to chain, where you're going to stop, where you're going to change the hook size, and all that. So I'm going to continue doing that. I did a total of 10 rows for this side. So I'm going to also have to do another 10 rows for this side, the other front portion. So I'm going to do that off camera because reaching this far, you already know how to do that. And once I'm done with that, you can just go ahead and close the flaps together, make sure their tops are aligning properly, and then you just want to go in with your needle or your crochet hook, however you prefer, and you want to sew this closed, the top part, and you're going to do that to the other side as well. And then I will meet you so that we can now start working on the... So I just finished connecting my shoulder portion, and I did that with a slip stitch, and I started connecting from this end, worked my way to this end, and then all I did was single crochet the other side where I could barely see the single crochets, and I ended down here. So all I was trying to do was create these hooks that are easier to see right there. So you want to make sure that your yarn, you can either just connect your yarn here, or you can work your way around the single crochet cut and connect here. Since I ended here, I just left my yarn there. So next, you want to follow the written pattern and know how much you need to chain for your sleeve. So for the sake of this version, I'm going to do about 10. That's 10, and I'm going to do an extra chain of 1. And then to begin the ribbing of our sleeve, we're going to grab our smaller hook and into the second stitch from the hook, going in with a half double slip stitch. And I am doing 5, but I think the pattern calls for 10, if not 15. And 5, making sure your stitch marker is always close. Gonna grab that and just place it in there, just like that. Back to your bigger hook. So the main trick that I want you to see is how we connect the yarn to the sleeve. So since you already know how we've been working this, I'm going to work on my way up until I have reached that last stitch, so that I can show you how I'm going to connect this row to the sleeve, and then how I'm going to start a new row. So I've just reached the top of my work. So to connect this row that we just worked, we're going to find the next single crochet, which in this case would be this one right here, and then I will go in there with a slip stitch, just like that. What this has done is connected the row that we've just worked on. To begin another row, you would usually do a chain up of 1 and turn, but in this case all we're going to do is slip stitch into 1 and turn. And then we're just gonna, holding our work up like this, you're gonna see the first 2 V's that are showing right here. So that's this one and this one. These 2 V's are where we've done our slip stitches, so obviously the row actually was gonna begin in that 3rd V. So into there, you're gonna go in with your half double slip stitch. So I'm gonna work my way up again so that I can show you how we do that one more time. I know it can be quite tricky and confusing, so I'm just gonna finish up the row and work my way back up, and I'll show you how we connect that one more time. So one thing that I've realized is, I mean, it's true for me, the very first stitch that we make as we're turning back around is kind of hard to see. So what I'm going to advise you to do if you're an absolute beginner is after you do that first stitch after we turn, you're going to have to place a stitch marker in there. I'm going to show you what I mean in a minute. So I've just reached the last one, and as we did earlier, you're going to find the next single crochet, go in there with a slip stitch, just like that. And then to begin the new row, find the next single crochet, which is this one right here, and go in there again with a slip stitch. There we go. Turning my work, holding it up like this. I'm gonna take note, this first two slip stitches, or this first two V's, I am not working into those, but rather this one right here. So this right here is my first stitch that I have made. So this first stitch that we've made is usually the one that's difficult to see. So after you make your first one, you want to make sure you just grab a stitch marker and place it in there, so you remember not to miss it. So that's all you're going to have to do the arm or the sleeve. So you're going to continue doing that for all the way around all the stitches that require that to happen. And once you reach the end, all you're going to do is connect. So you notice that I didn't turn this cardigan inside out, because this is where the seaming for the shoulder is, and we want the seaming for the arms to be on this side, because after we're done, we're going to turn the whole thing inside out so that all the seaming can be on the inside of our cardigan, so that obviously it looks very neat and very pretty. So you go on finishing your sleeve. I'm probably not going to go all the way for this version since I'm going to have to take it out anyway, but the pattern, the written pattern, should show you how far that you have to go. But like I explained, once you reach the top, you're going to slip stitch into the next single crochet to connect the row, and then you slip stitch into the other single crochet just to start a new row. You work your way all around, and then you will connect. Once you reach the last one, you will connect with either your yarn needle or your hook. After you connect, you cut, and you do the very same thing to the other side. So now that we've done that, let me just show you how we're going to do the collar. So working our collar, we're just going to be using the 4mm hook the entire time. And what you want to do first is, if seeing the stitches on this side, the other side, if this is going to be hard for you to tell out where the stitch is, please go all the way around your work placing a single crochet. I didn't have to do that since it's quite easy for me to make out where the stitch is. After you've done that, you want to connect your yarn to your 4mm hook. Let me do that again. Just like that. And then you want to grab one of the corners. I'm going to grab this one for me, and if I look closely, I'm going to see that this is my first stitch right here. So I'm just going to insert my hook through there, grab my hook, and I'll connect with a slip stitch. Just like that. Do my chain up of 1, and I'm going to go all the way with half double slip stitches. For the first one, I went through both loops. For the remaining, you want to go through the back loops with your 4mm hook. So into the back loops only. I'm assuming that you've done your single crochets all the way around. If you haven't done them all the way around, don't worry. It's absolutely fine. It's the first row, so it's not going to show much. And just like that. So if you're going to notice, I mean, if I hold my work like this, you're going to notice that the ribbing, this half double slip stitches on down here, the 5 rows compared to the upper row, is finer. So we want to have the ribbon to be as fine as this. That's why we're using a smaller crochet hook. So I went and grabbed the main cardigan just to show you what I mean about the ribbing. I did a total of 8 rows for my collar, but for you, you can go as far as you want. If you want 10, you can do 10. If you want less, you can do less. It's actually quite stretchy, considering the stitch is actually quite stretchy. And so this is what your work should look like after you're done. If I pull it up, since it's quite big for my screen to show, you're gonna see this is the bottom part, the ribbing, where I used the 4mm hook compared to the 6. I was using a 5 for this because of the yarn that I'm using, but the Backshow pattern told you is a 6mm hook, and they should show you a big difference between the 4 and the 6. So after everything, this is what your work should be looking like. Please, I would love to know the color that you've made yours in. So if you check in the description box below, you're going to find a link to our Facebook group. Be sure to join that so we can share other projects that are yet to come. After you're done with your collar, you want to make sure you cut off all the excess yarn and weave them in properly. And voila, your cardigan is done. I hope you enjoyed the tutorial, guys, as much as I did, and you make sure you give it a big thumbs up because it really helps a lot. Subscribe so you don't miss out, and comment so that we know what you thought about this tutorial. Bye for now.